Hey, and welcome to the Story Studio podcast where Dave has confirmed that he is, ready. So it's good. We're ready to go.
You expect enthusiasm for 2 shows in a row?
I really don't. I would be disappointed if you were enthusiastic. Just set a Pomodoro timer. You got to do the podcast for 25 minutes, and you can leave for 5. It's great. Today we're going to discuss...
You know what? I think he does do that because he just he blacks out. I bet you he's been Pomodoring this shit for years.
I do it with everything in my life, including my marriage.
Have you ever stopped your wife mid sentence and just been like, the timer goes off and you just
time's up, tick tick, motherfucker.
I get a break now.
I get a break. Love that. You're in the middle of family time at a restaurant. I need a break. All right,
the lawn, just leave the lawnmower running. Walk away.
Today we're going to discuss serial fiction. We had thanks to Tara and Chelsea, both emailed in and asked us to do an episode just specifically on serial fiction, which is cool, and we're going to do it, but also sort of a rallying cry for those of you who might be out there wanting other episodes. Like, we take requests, much like the best DJs. But before we do that, something cool.
Oh, shit.
Are you thinking about it?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I actually don't know if this was done before because I feel like we discussed it, but I don't think it was a something cool, is Jojo Rabbit. Holy fuck. It's got to be the best movie that I saw in the past, since the beginning of 2019 at least. That was really, really amazing and not totally what I expected. So if you've seen the previews, I don't know do you know how wide of a distribution it got? It couldn't have been
It wasn't huge. I mean, it's too quirky to be huge. But I mean, it only got one theater here, Barton. So
yeah, I doubt it's playing at my theater. And if it was, the audience just showed up
wrong. Right, they took the wrong position.
What the hell? I thought Hitler was going to get killing people.
Okay, so Bonnie says it was in her theater for literally a week. It stuck around for a while.
Robin and I saw a movie on our date day on Wednesday, and we scanned all the movies, and this was not an option. So I forgot about it, and then we were looking again on Friday of the same week, and it was there because we were going to go see something with Austin, and that's what we ended up doing. And so it didn't get a big distribution, but if maybe you've seen the preview or anything, it's the one where it's a boy, he's 10. And he's living in Germany during World War II. And
like Dave, he has an imaginary friend that's Hitler.
His imaginary friend is Hitler. And so it's positioned, the previews and stuff all kind of show it as being quirky. And obviously, when they're talking about Hitler and the Nazis, unless they're monsters, it's not just going to be a laugh fest probably. But I was unprepared for just how powerful it was and funny. I laughed a bunch. I thought it was really fun, really interesting, and really cute, but also devastating. And I texted Sean afterwards, and I said, it's the weirdest thing. I said, we left the theater a half hour ago, and I can't shake it. Usually, even if a movie affects me, I walk out and it's over, but it didn't. It stuck with me. And it was just kind of it really got me, that movie. It had all of my triggers, and I can't recommend it more. It was just amazing.
Wait, so just to clarify, Marie says, wait, the imaginary friend Hitler is a real premise. Yes, it is.
Because he's a fanatic, the kid. He's totally bought into the Hitler Youth, and he believes all of the dogma. And so the idea that Hitler is his imaginary friend is just it's his hero.
Hitler Youth sounds like one of those 80s magazines that girls read with the hairbands on the cover.
Right. In The Simpsons, it's Corey magazine, only it's Hitler.
It really does. That kind of environment, it lends itself to a lot of farce. But there's also a lot of just depth of emotion right there with the farce. It's a great movie. It really is. It
hit me hard. Yeah, it hit me hard. It really pulled all the emotional triggers from me. But I will say too that I've always been impressed at how great a Trojan horse humor is, because when you go in and you're disarmed, amused right away. So why can I not remember her name? Rebel Wilson is this blonde Nazi grand dame who helps run the Hitler youth camps, and some of the shit that she says is just ridiculous. And then at the end, some of the shit that happens is just plain hideous. So like when you get in there and you're just kind of like, okay, this is amusing. They're playing these people off as this way or this way. So like, and this isn't a spoiler, but when there's an accident that occurs and it's funny at the beginning, like it's kind of devastating for this kid, but at the time you're like, whoa, that's funny. So it disarms you. And so by the time the meteor stuff comes, it just hit me like a punch.
Yeah, Haley was really affected by that movie. It was definitely, I'd say it's in her top 3 of the year. And do you remember this? She drew a Jojo Rabbit little, like, she does these boards with like a bunch of items from something that she loves. And there was a knife covering up part of the swastika on the thing, and she got in trouble with Instagram. Her account got banned.
Oh.
So like she woke up, she was so sad, and like, well, like it does it, like the algorithms picked it up, right? Like,
and if you're not getting banned a little as an artist, you're not doing your job.
I did tell her that. So yeah, I really like that, and I know we need to move on from Jojo Rabbit, but he just had like a couple of moments. But how amazing was JoJo's friend?
Oh, she was great.
No, I don't mean her. Oh. I mean the kid, like. Because she was.
Oh
great,
yeah, he was great too.
He was just like he
I love that kid.
Like,
yeah,
chubby little friend with glasses, and you've seen this kid, not this actual actor, this character. Like the chubby friend with glasses. It's like a trope.
And he believes all the stuff in just a very sweet, sincere way. So like he's like just very, he's just talking to JoJo, but we got to get out here before the Russians come up because they're gonna steal all our stuff and fuck all our dogs. Like I'm just like, what the fuck is that? And that's some of the most serious stuff in the movie. So I just love when a movie's able to do that.
Yeah, its sense of it's not its sense. Its command of tone is really impressive. And Johnny and I try to do that. We try to be very funny in a very upsetting situation because it is jarring, and you do pay attention. And anyway, yeah, Jojo Rabbit, definitely check it out if you
must
can.
watch.
Marie said, I think Rebel Wilson was in Cats.
Yes,
I'll resist making Cats as a Holocaust movie joke.
Yeah, okay, good.
I think
that's a good call, Dave.
Actually,
no, I'm saying I'm not going to do it.
Oh.
Right.
Therefore,
but I think by saying
nobody can be offended.
Right, that's a way of having your cake and eating it too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make this specific joke. Let me explain
I
to you
haven't
the joke I'm
offended
not
anyone
making.
now.
Yeah.
You haven't even heard of Jojo Rabbit, Marie? Yeah, you gotta check out the trailer. The trailer is a pretty good is a pretty good representation of the movie. Mine, I know I've talked about this a couple of times already, but I actually finished all 3 seasons, so I'm gonna do it as something cool again. But the show Easy on Netflix, which is like it's underrated because I looked it up on IMDb and it's got like a 6, which I do realize that it's not for everybody at all. It's an anthology series, but there are revisiting characters, unlike with like Black Mirror where every single one is different. This one, the writer-director. I also found out while looking up its crappy IMDb score that Joe Swanberg, the guy who's the writer-director, is the only person on Netflix to write and direct every single episode of his show, which is impressive. And a lot of them are just like lingering conversations. And my favorite one, so they're all like about crucial conversations that happen in life. And my favorite episode in the 3rd season does something I've never seen on TV before. All of these episodes are about 30 minutes, give or take, like 27 to 33 or whatever, right? This particular one was just under an hour, and it had a 30-minute conversation.
Peace scene? Oh.
No, a 30-minute conversation. So now the premise of this is there's this couple, Kyle and Andy, and in the first episode of the 1st season, we start with them, and they decide like they're having problems. They're not having sex nearly as much as they used to. Their kids are like, I don't know, maybe 5 and 7, I want to say. and it's on Halloween night, and they get costumes and send the kids out trick-or-treating and have fun. And then at the very end of the episode, they basically decide that they're going to open their marriage because like they still very much love each other, and they love the comfort and the safety that their relationship provides. They love being parents together, but that like fire, that desire.
Daddy just ain't bringing the D train anymore.
That's actually the plot. Yes, because she wants it more than he's like bringing it. So yes, you're right, Dave. So then we get another one in season 2, and we see kind of the consequences of their open marriage. And then in the last season, they actually get 2 episodes. And if you played all 4 of these episodes together, they would have a really kind of just amazing movie, is what it would feel like, about the consequences and opportunities of an open marriage. But this last episode where they're having this conversation, and it's just, there's something that even in the very best shows where I like really love, like I love how the network handles This Is Us dialogue. Like they take these really big moments in people's lives and they kind of truncate it into a 2 to 3 minute scene. Well, now you have something that's 10 to 15 times that long, and you're really seeing how brittle the communication is and how hard they're trying to love and communicate with each other. And by the end, I'm not even sure if these people are still in love with one another, but they're tiptoeing around each other, and one of them is just crying and the other one is trying to choose their words really carefully. And it's just kind of an amazing thing that I've never seen a conversation run that long, or some of it I felt like had to be ad-libbed. It was just kind of beautiful to watch. Anyway,
some writers working out their own marriage issues.
Sure, yeah, sure. But the
honey, this is my way of saying I want to fuck other people.
I think that the character work and the dialogue and like that kind of stuff, I realize that people want their series to all say one thing, which this is actually perfect for our topic today, because that's what we're talking about, is serialization and how to get viewers or readers to invest in your story and stick with it episode to episode to episode. And when you're jumping around to different characters and different situations, it's a lot harder to maintain a viewer. I get that, and that's why it's at 6% or whatever, or 6 out of 10 on IMDb. But it's really good, and if you're listening to this, you're a writer. So if you want to now I will say that not all the episodes are home run, and there's a couple I actually like. I couldn't believe it came from the same writer. They're just not very good. But the good ones are great, and it's ambitious. Like, as writers and creators, we should appreciate ambition. And this show does stuff that I haven't seen anywhere else.
Dave?
Yes. No, well, I haven't seen it yet, but HBO has started a series for The Outsider, Stephen King's book.
Oh, I'm excited about that.
And there's 3 episodes in. I haven't started it yet, but I think my wife will watch it with me because she liked True Detective, and it's just kind of described as True Detective, but with a more supernatural.
It is. I've read the book. It's good stuff.
Did you like the book? My dad is a diehard Stephen King fan, and every time he reads one lately, he's like, "Oh, that didn't go anywhere."
Well, okay.
Don't ruin it.
I won't. It's related to the Mr. Mercedes trilogy, which is what got me to read it. And then it was really removed from that trilogy and didn't feel like the connective tissue that I wanted between those stories wasn't really there. And so I felt disappointed by what I read, but that's not fair. And I think it's actually perfect material for television, like perfect. So I think it will adapt really well. I think HBO's right. And I'm also going to say that I have a future something cool, because I saw the first episode of The Watchmen. Great, Dave. Oh my God. And I also listened to the first episode of the podcast that you and Bonnie were going on about with Damon Lindelof. And I didn't know Craig Mazin was the host. Why didn't you tell me that? I'd have been even more into it.
Who is he?
He's one half of the Script Notes podcast. He's great. He also wrote Chernobyl.
Yeah, we saw him speak. He was good.
Yeah, he wrote Chernobyl, which just
okay.
Yeah, he's great. So I didn't know until I started listening that it was Craig Mazin interviewing Damon Lindelof, which is awesome.
So Sean, through your filter, Watchmen, okay for my wife or no? Because I know Dave said yes, but I think we all know Dave has a little darker skew on life than most
Probably
people.
not. I'm actually going to watch it. I'm probably going to watch it on my own. But it's not, I haven't seen anything that's like a sure, there's no.
I think we'll watch the pilot together.
There is a great love story in there that's realized later in the series.
Yeah, what I saw was a little, like it wasn't as violent as Westworld, say.
It's not violence. She gets nervous, which is really annoying because like nervous is like thrillers and so like every movie that I watch.
There's a lot of nerves to it. There are. I would probably. I mean, there's so many good shows, dude. If I'm going to say yay or nay on this one, I'm going to say nay. But having said that, I also like that it's only 8 episodes, and then you get the whole story. There's no season 2. Like that's very attractive to me.
Yeah, it's high on my list. I'll watch it on my own for sure. All right, so serial fiction. So before we begin, just make a couple of quick announcements just so I don't forget them at the end. The first is that I mentioned, you guys can suggest podcast topics. Please do. If there's something you really want to hear us discuss, you can send that to Jen Turrell at sterlingandstone.net, and her name is spelled Jen, obviously, Jen, Turrell, Jen Turrell, 2 R's, 2 L's, at sterlingandstone.net. And you can suggest topic ideas, things you want to know about. There is a note in here. You can force us to try something like the productivity one we did, but just know that if you're annoying, we're not going to do it. Like, we don't have to do it. There were bunch we've turned down. We're like, fuck that.
Dear Jen, can we have more episodes without Dave?
Everybody, a naked show. That's a suggestion we're getting all the time. And then the other announcement I wanted to make is that we are running some promotions in conjunction with BookFunnel. And that's basically, for fiction authors looking to promote their own books. It'd be a highly curated thing that we're doing.
Are we doing any dinosaur porn packages?
Dinosaur porn is not one of the subgenres we're handling right now. I don't remember what they are, but they're like I know we aren't romance yet, but we are doing thriller and sci-fi and literary fiction, interestingly, and a few others. So if you're interested,
talking cats that solve mysteries.
What if I wrote a book that's an unofficial sequel to Abraham Lincoln, Fuck Lord of
Well, I don't know what the genre is for that.
It's all of them.
All genres.
Historical fiction, I believe.
I'm planning on putting all the genres in there.
I can think of a gonzo title.
Dinosaur porn.
I can think of a gonzo title that we were working on that would probably work as an unofficial sequel to Abraham Lincoln if we tweak it a little bit.
Do you wish that we had done that? Is there a part of you that ever wishes?
Very, very, very much.
I'm writing a sequel called Donald Trump, Fuck Lord of Venus. Uranus. That'd be obvious. Why did I miss it?
What's really fun is when I try to like read something with a CTA, and you guys interrupt me 10 times right before I give the link that people are waiting for. Hold on, let me give the link. sterlingandstone.net/promos if you want to check that out. Go ahead. Now you can say whatever you want about Abraham.
Donald Trump, fuck Lord of Uranus.
There you go.
It's not as much fun now. It's way more fun when you're about to give the CTA.
But I mean, it's not a CTA for like my kid's birthday party. Like, this is something for the company we run. All of us. You're right. It's not as much fun though. So anyway, we're going to talk about serial fiction today, and I think this is like a global conversation: pros and cons, different models. The way that it's changed, like what's working now.
You want me to talk about our origins?
I think that might be an excellent place to start, actually.
All right, so
Jake, you do understand this is like stories cut into pieces and not like stuff you pour milk into, right?
Oh, never mind.
I thought you might get less interested.
I was looking forward to a lengthy, healthy debate about Fruit Loops versus Cookie Crisp.
I thought you were going to go with Count Chocula. Actually.
Fan fiction for Toucan Sam with that big striped nose of his and what he does with it.
No,
honey.
In 1996, I think it was, I read Green Mile by Stephen King, and ever since I wanted to do serials. So when I met Sean and we started working together, we really wanted to do serials, but it wasn't really an option yet because Kindle wasn't really a thing yet, and we're like, well, we were publisher
serials on a blog.
Yeah.
You were printing little books, right? Or was that not serialized?
No, that wasn't. Those weren't print; those were digital. But that was something different. Available Darkness is the first thing that we serialized, and we did that every Friday. We would have a new chapter that came out on the Collective Inkwell blog.
Yeah, like 2008. So did that, and we're like, well, nobody's ever gonna fucking, they're not gonna publish us doing a serial. That's just not gonna happen. So then, when in 2010, when Kindle really just first started to take off, we were talking, and we were like, fucking Kindle's perfect for serials. It's
2011.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so really, it's perfect for serials. Why don't we try one? Got together and started up with
Why? What was your logic on it's perfect for serials?
Because, well, first of all, we can publish directly to people and find our own audience. We don't have to worry about a publisher taking a chance on something that won't work. And it was also it's an ebook being delivered to you. So, I mean, it doesn't get much easier than that. It's quick, and people get hooked. They love it. They just want to read the next one. They go right to it.
We knew we could write in a serialized way because we'd already done it for a while. So we'd done it. We liked the way the characters unfolded. We liked the energy artistically between us. It was just a delivery. Where's our traffic going to come from? If we didn't have to worry about traffic because Amazon was going to handle that, they were handling traffic and delivery, then yay, we could at least experiment with our idea. But the real reason that we started with serials instead of books is visibility. So the way to get attention back then was with 99-cent books, but we didn't really want to write 99-cent books. This was a way of hacking visibility because we could write a 25,000 word book and call it an episode. And I think that's what really worked for us was not only using language that properly defined the experience we wanted our readers to have, but actually changing the experience. So we weren't at any point, we weren't creating an entire story and breaking it into smaller pieces. We were thinking about what would this show breathe like if it was on television. It would have a different way of opening and closing. And so we actually thought in terms of episodes and seasons and then used that vocabulary to sell our work. So
to our credit collectively, when we first wanted to do it, every bit of advice I saw said, no, it's a horrible idea. We did it anyway. We were among the first to do it in ebooks, and I believe we are the first to use television like seasons and episodes, which is something a lot of people did afterwards. And that's all on Sean, because Sean's like, this is how we want to present it. Like, this is our TV show, and that's the mindset we adapted.
What you mentioned, 25,000 words, is that the correct number of words in an episode?
All right. So
Johnny can only do 25.
Because that is seriously, it's in the top 3 questions that we're asked constantly, which is how many episodes should there be in a serial, and how long should a serial be, if you're watching it on TV. And I think that one of the beautiful things, like, our answer has always been, okay, like how long, I don't know, how long does it need to be? And I think that we've really seen this play out in the last few years. With streaming. So it started in the 90s, where on HBO, for example, a Sopranos episode sometimes would be 52 minutes. Sometimes it would be 58 minutes, but it was always under an hour. And, they still, it wasn't like the rigidity of network television where it was actually built around the commercial breaks, and you knew, a sitcom is going to be 22 minutes. That's it.
Well, there was one episode where Tony Soprano played with the Ducks for 3.5 hours, naked in his pool.
I think that was the pilot.
Yeah.
But when we got to the streaming era, that really changed, and you saw wildly different runtimes on things. Where, I mean, like the Wachowskis, no surprise, went really overboard, and they would have some episodes are like 46 minutes and then one that was an hour and a half. Like, they're just all over the place. And it is, how long does it take to tell a story? Now, having said that, I think that viewers appreciate consistency. So you can go, between 45 minutes and 55 minutes or whatever, but you shouldn't have one that's 18 minutes and one that's 90 minutes. That feels weird.
Here's another thing you shouldn't do, though. Look at what Platt and Truant are doing, or Platt and Wright are doing, and use that as the benchmark. Sorry, Dave, I was just trying to steal your co-author like I have many times in the past.
Johnny's absolutely right. You don't know why somebody's necessarily doing the thing that they're doing. You don't understand what their kitchen looks like, what their ingredients they have access to, why they use a wok instead of a skillet. You don't know any of those things. So trying to copy the recipe is just going to end up with you frustrated in the kitchen making something subpar. So, Dave
it also puts your attention on the wrong things. So you rightly covered half of the equation, which is what worked for them might not work for you. But I think another important thing to consider is, why are you following somebody else's compass? Just don't do that.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about specifically Yesterday's Gone. Bonnie wants to know what techniques we took from TV and applied to Yesterday's Gone, if any. And yes, of course, there were a lot. And did you hit cliffhangers at the ends of scenes harder?
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. The way we handled Yesterday's Gone was we divided and conquered. We knew that in any really great scripted show, you weren't following one person, at least not in the ones that we liked. Like at the time we were watching Lost, we both really loved Lost. This was right before Lost went off the air. We both loved that show. We both loved Battlestar Galactica.
Breaking Bad,
yeah. These shows with like big casts. So we knew we wanted a lot of different storylines and a lot of different POVs. And so I think like this could have been a disaster. It was definitely a crapshoot. It ended up being kind of brilliant. We just divided. Like, Dave, you write 3 stories and I'll write 3 stories and then we'll put it together. And that ended up working kind of like...
Yeah, I'm kind of amazed that you guys did that. And it reminds me of what I've said a few times about how what I think is a really good definition of an entrepreneur. A successful entrepreneur is somebody it just never occurs to them that that's not possible.
Right.
Right. You did that? That's not possible. Well, sorry, I already did it.
Yeah, and it was really interesting to see how we divided that, because Dave's choices are all very tropey Dave, but I didn't know this at the time because I hadn't worked with him long enough to know that, he had the guy who...
You killed all my characters, motherfucker.
He has a journalist who spends way too much time working and lamenting not spending time with his family.
Is anything compared to the cover of Architectural Digest? Or the best fries you've ever seen, or somebody shitting?
Pissing, not shitting. I don't like shit scenes.
What if they're pissing while eating fries and thinking about Architectural Digest?
Dude, in episode, I think it's season 4, you have an epic guy shitting in a bucket scene.
I don't remember.
All right, so
Charlie?
No, it's a throwaway character. Like he basically exists.
He shows up to shit in the bucket.
Yeah, Dave the benevolent god.
It's like when we were writing. It's like when we were writing some of our erotica. We're like, we have to shoehorn in a sex scene. Too much story. Quick.
It might have been my social commentary of the time.
So yeah, Dave definitely has some shit in buckets. So one is the journalist who's not spending enough time with his son. You have the disaffected teenager coming from an abusive, really religious family, and the action hero. And then mine are just as tropey, just in a totally different way. You've got the serial killer genius, an 8-year-old boy. And because I'm always trying to get more out of anything.
Yeah, and how well did that work? The 8-year-old boy came off well, right? A favorite amongst readers.
Favorite, yes.
Almost as good as a dog that barked for 4 pages.
Naturalistic dialogue. So yeah, we actually did fuck up in a few places in the pilot, and I know that Dave and I both think if we could rewrite the pilot, there's a few things we would do differently. But it did. You know what? It is magic. I wouldn't change it because we got out there. My third character was actually a group of characters because I wanted to squeeze a little more out and I wanted.
Well, that's a Sean trope right there. Remember when you were
Yeah, no,
writing
Thinking you're
goals?
shitting
Or
in the
keep it to
bucket.
10 goals
No,
with
well,
6 sub goals each.
That's exactly right. And I knew that we needed more dialogue. We needed more, like, I felt like it would feel too empty if we had 6 individual characters wandering a landscape.
You notice that I killed all 3 of your additional characters?
Yes. I did.
Oh, that was a joke I was making, and it's true.
No, it is true.
Every Dave scene starts with a bomb in the closet. Starts that way.
But we definitely were able to take that story and make sure that the cliffhangers were very sharp. We absolutely took that from TV, and that was really important to us. But I think the big takeaway is how quickly we evolved. So we were building out Yesterday's Gone, thinking like we weren't thinking this is going to get to TV someday, so much as this is something we would love to see on TV. And that's a big difference, right? By the time we got to our 3rd series, we were thinking totally differently. We were thinking this is going to be on TV someday.
Is that White Space?
Yeah. So we were paying more attention to location and to we talked more cast at the time. At least I did in my head. I was a little more
describe the location thing, because I think this is interesting and telling. When you say we designed it for TV and then you talk about location, can you tell that story?
Okay, so yeah, we were trying to accomplish 2 things with location. We wanted to pay mind to the mood, like what is a mood of the setting, but also like how cheap would it be to film there. And so we were watching The Killing at the time, which was originally AMC, I think, yes. But you can get the 3rd season on Netflix.
You get all of them on Netflix.
So
all the rights.
It was shot in Washington, and it has this real like rainy, just kind of like a little bit.
I think it was actually shot in Canada, but it was supposed to be Washington.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Lot of stuff is shot in Vancouver. Yeah. But that mood, right? It's so we set it in Puget Sound because we knew that like little enclosed island community, we set it on an island,
fictional island.
Yeah, you can fake that, right? You can. They've always faked that shit. We went into it with a lot more intention. We were taking things like cliffhangers. In fact, the end of season 1, White Space, has one of my favorite cliffhangers that we've ever written.
I know that cliffhanger. It was a good one.
It was very serious.
So good, he never read the 2nd book.
I got to the wedding scene.
I think that really got us into thinking like, like showrunners and not just fanboys.
Well, I was going to say one thing we did learn and pick up that we didn't know in the 1st season of Yesterday's Gone is we started to even take more of TV for episodes. We would have like a self-contained sort of arc for a specific character per episode. We started doing that in our serials, which was something we didn't do in the 1st season of Yesterday's Gone that I would probably fix if I could.
Yeah, because they need to feel self-contained. If you watch any well-scripted show, they do have an A story, they have a B story, and they have an opening and a beginning. There is resolution to whatever narrative they're introducing, even if the larger mythology goes unanswered.
Yeah.
So we did.
Go ahead.
Well, I think that Dave and I were actually on a roll and getting really good at that. And I think we would have gotten better and better and better at serials. Ironically, what I think ruined it was joining the serial program that Amazon started. Because they didn't have it figured out, and we kind of assumed that they did. They had technology that was very appealing to us, where readers could buy, the 1st book and then get auto updates, which is really great. That really improves the...
That's the big pain point with Amazon, which changed because you couldn't really make money on 99 cents anymore. They didn't sell as well. So your only real option was just sell a single episode for $2.99. But then if you're doing 6 episodes for a season, you're charging people a lot of fucking money for one book, and it's not fair to the reader. We want people to be able to experience on a weekly or a monthly, whatever your schedule is. We want readers to experience it in a timely manner, So they're looking forward. So they get that to be continued that like really gets them psyched for the next one, and they can't wait. And it's just like a TV show, but not to charge them that much money. So we thought Amazon's serial program was the perfect thing. You know, you buy the book once, it auto updates, and that removes the biggest pain point. And I don't know what the hell happened to the Amazon serial program. It just imploded. I guess it didn't do well for them.
Yeah, it didn't do well for them for whatever reason, and so ultimately it didn't do well for us. But worse than lackluster sales on the work that we did with them and a crappy percentage of those sales, I think the real cost to us was it fucked with mine and Dave's mojo, because all of a sudden
you guys didn't have any control either.
Exactly. Like, it wasn't that our creative process suffered, although it did, because they were really accelerating us. We had 6 weeks to deliver the first 6 episodes of both shows. So they were asking us to do them weekly, and that was just too fast.
And handle fucking editorial suggestions. And I mean, it wasn't like I'm sure there's people that have dealt with worse. They were pretty good to work with, but it wasn't what we were doing.
It wasn't what we were doing, and it took our eye off of what we were doing. And I think we as a studio really, really understand that now.
We need to understand that. That's not the first time or the last time we've heard that. Like, we were doing something, it worked. We chased a shiny penny of some sort of something that was really promising at the expense of that, and now we wish we'd have stuck with it. So I think we're learning to trust our compass better.
And it was also the prestige of being traditionally published. That was something we wanted.
It's not just that. I think this may be our most forgivable sin ever, because it didn't feel like a shiny penny at all at the time. It was Amazon finally knocking on our door and acknowledging us. So like, hey, we saw what you did with Yesterday's Gone. And like, from our perspective, they have the keys to the kingdom. Of course, our books are going to be huge with them because they can make us deal of the day or whatever.
And that was huge to me, the recognition, because I felt that we were at least among the first on Amazon to really do serials well. Meanwhile, the program, the first people they started with were people that were not known for serials, people that hadn't done this.
Dave was offended.
I was very pissed. I was like, we should have been the first people they called. Even if we weren't the biggest names, we had done serials better. We had proven it, and and they even asked us questions like, like they wanted our input on what made them work. So
Amazon's real good at pretending to want your input and then not paying attention.
Yeah, that's true.
We may have had some of those conversations later.
But what it felt good that they respected what we were doing, because I felt that a lot of people hadn't recognized at the time what we were doing.
Yeah, so that's a good transition then, because Dave and I, at that point, it became company-wide, actually. We never bounced back from that. And we tried serials a bunch of times. But from then forward, it really became a matter of, this is how we write a serial. But the releases never really worked serialized. But
it was
over the price point, the pain there.
But it was an interesting exercise for another reason, because I came into this as a tourist. Sean and Dave pioneered a lot of that, all of it, as far as I was concerned, in my writing of serials. And so by the time Sean and I were doing it, it was like there was kind of a path to follow. But what it allowed us to do that I don't think you guys did is, for a while there, we had the joke that that I was the mistress who would do all the crazy things that Dave wouldn't do, right? And so in the midst of that, Sean came up with 6 pitches, 3 serious ones and 3 comedies, and said, let's pilot them. And the idea of piloting doesn't make sense when you're talking about full books or series. So I think that our comedy pilots were around 8,000 words each, so not a big deal. And the serious ones were, I think, 15 to 20,000 each. So to do all 6 of them was under 100,000 words, which is the length of like a goodish length book. So the idea of piloting doesn't work without serials. So that is one advantage of it, if you treat it like not as a cutout part of a book, but as something that you're either testing the waters or that you're writing as a whole in an episodic format.
Yeah, so let's talk about the evolution of it and kind of what we're doing now, because
Which parallels our binge discussion, honestly. It's kind of interesting a few weeks ago.
Yeah, no, it really does. Joel says, Dave brings up a good point, and that is, what is a good release schedule per week or month or what? And I think that's a little bit like the how many words should there be? It's like, what kind of experience are you trying to create for the reader? What kind of relationship do you have with the reader? And what can you get away with? Also, what can you sustain? Like, how fast do you write as an author? So we're actually leaning heavily into serials again, because it's a really great way to tell a story. I know it just goes with a lot of the things we want to say. It allows us to be bigger, use a bigger canvas, but also we're wanting to sell things to film and television as we move forward. And so we're designing some things, with that intention from the beginning. So we have a bunch of different models coming out. We have weekly. We'll be experimenting with weekly with Johnny and I, and with Dave and I. And
interestingly, I don't know what that is, but
oh yeah, you do.
I don't remember then anyway.
Well, it's
is it the continuation of our beam? Because I've talked about that in the newsletter. So the continuation of that.
Oh well, then it's seasons 4 and 5 of the beam we have coming out, and those will be weekly releases. We have a new property with Dave and I that will be weekly releases that we're actually working on. That will have a parallel, really cool side series with another author in the studio. And that'll be weekly. Probably, we don't know until we get to that point in the calendar. It's a bit ways out. Johnny and I are also developing something that's more of like a literary piece that would be like a limited series with 10 episodes, and those will come out every month. They'll be a little longer.
Sorry to clarify the terminology on that. Limited series, if you're not familiar with that, is basically a serial, but it just stops after one series. It's like, there's just, like Sean said, there's just one episode. There's just one season. There's just 10 episodes, and then you're done.
Right. So like The Haunting of Hill House last year was, I think, probably the limited series that we all enjoyed the most. Watchmen right now. I'm excited that is a limited series, because awesome. I'm going to go watch my 8 episodes.
It's like the old made-for-TV movies, only not shitty. That was a big thing in like the late 80s.
Yeah, those miniseries.
It gave you like 4 to 6 hours to tell a story, and that was cool.
Right. So like Roots is a limited series, right? It's just an old one. So we're designing a few different things like that. I'm working with Bonnie on another one for next year. So yeah, anyway, we're definitely leaning into the serialized type of storytelling. It makes us really happy. I think that figuring out how to release that and have readers coming back and excited and anticipating is something that we have to figure out again for the second time, kind of from scratch. But I think it's something that we're really excited to figure out, because, Dave and I a long time ago called ourselves Kings of the Serial. We wanted to be Kings of the Serial. And
we were Kings of the Serial.
Well, we were.
We were captains of that crowd
for a very brief reign.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember this, but we had, not conflict. That's a really big word for what it was. And I backed down immediately because I like it when Dave's comfortable. But do you remember when I wanted to call us the HBO? This is before
I know this story.
Yeah. I wanted to call us the HBO of ebooks, and you really strongly objected to it. You're like, we can't say that. Like,
I had a few reasons. One, I didn't know if it was legally permissible. But second of all, I didn't want to narrow myself to one particular. Like, what if AMC wanted our show, and they're like, well, you're the HBO, so fuck you.
They wanted to be the Skinamax.
Yeah, that's not how it works, dude.
That's how my mind
Netflix,
works. All right.
HBO was the king. They were considered the highest quality.
I was thinking ahead. So AMC was already doing well. Thank you.
Dave was preemptively right.
They weren't HBO. Like that's exactly it. Like
they had The Killing and Breaking Bad. I think that's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, you're right. They're also not HBO. HBO was the kings, so calling yourself Kings of the Serial is the same as calling yourself the HBO of ebooks, except the HBO of ebooks is sexier and gets Hollywood's attention.
I do like the stars of serials, as suggested by.
Stars has some good shows.
But I mean, come on, Stars is the poor cousin. Let's admit it. That's what you get somebody when it's a condolence gift.
I don't know. I think I disagree with that.
You're just supposed to accept it because there just went the air out of my joke. Now I look like an asshole. Thanks.
Okay, what's your favorite Stars series, Dave?
American Gods. I like the first season. There's Outlander, which I haven't watched, but like a friend of mine just fucking goes on and on about it.
Outlander, people love that show.
Yeah. So there's another one, Power. There's a few. I haven't watched too many because I've only had Stars like at different times where I catch a few. There was one other.
And you got it as a consolation prize?
Yeah. No, because I don't have time to watch fucking everything.
Okay. So what's the current thinking? I mean, I guess we don't know the current thinking on serials. Here, let me offer an opinion, and that's I think that this is more an art than a science. And I think that anybody listening to this,
definitely.
I think anybody listening to this would be real easy to be taking notes right now. Okay, I need to write things about this long. It needs to have this many episodes. I need to release it this way or consider it this way. Nothing we are describing is mechanistic. You are telling stories, and people want stories. So I'm actually a little torn on how much you need to prepare people for the idea of episodes and seasons in serials. And part of me really wonders if you could just kind of be like, here's a reading experience, here's a book, and you'll figure it out. Because I think that because I know that we did something, we wrote a little intro essay to the Beam to describe what that experience was. Like we wanted people to understand what they were doing. But I wonder if that raises maybe an unnecessary hurdle. Like, oh, hold on, I don't know that I want to read something different. Whereas if they just read the damn thing, maybe it wouldn't matter. But I think that the whole point is don't be prescriptive.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I think that you should do a lot of extra work. Okay, so this is important because a lot of people, I feel, approach serials as a way of shortcutting the process, which Dave and I for sure did when we started, but that's not how we're doing it now.
I don't think you were shortcutting the process. I think you were looking for a hack for the process. It's a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. But like we would publish live. We would like publish episode 2 and then write episode 3 and write episode 4.
And there's also a world of difference between what you did, not knowing and trying things out, versus what somebody might do listening to this, following a quote unquote blueprint.
Exactly. So right now our goal is to write a full limited series or a full season of something before we launch the first episode. So we know what story we're telling and it's the best story it can possibly be. So that's very expensive. Where when Dave and I were first doing it, it was the cheapest way we could get to market. Now it's actually the prestige thing. It's the most expensive way we can get to market. So like the thing that Johnny and I are writing, you know what? We write shit that's long. Like this might not come out until 2022 because we're going to write it an episode at a time. We always go long. We can't.
Oh, Dave's Pomodoro ended.
I just noticed that. So if Johnny and I always go long and there's going to be 10 episodes, I could see this thing being 500,000 words. And we're going to write all of those before the first one gets written. So, I'm writing another pilot right now. And I got 2/3 into it and realized, I'm going to rewrite this whole entire thing. So I just filled it with notes and gave it back to Bonnie. And I'm going to just rewrite it because it's a different story. And that's what you have to do with a pilot. And in fact, the first time we did that was white space. We had a lot of white space written. And then we decided we have a better story to tell. And we rewrote it. So the thing that I'm going to rewrite it sometime next month. And then same thing, I'm only going to map out the next episode so I'll start on episode 2 when episodes 1 is done and 3 when episode 2 is done. And then when it's all done, I'll go back to 1 and make sure that everything reads like.
But interestingly, I think that's just one more example of something that maybe it depends. So, and I don't know how much you'll agree with this, Sean, but the way that I tend to write first drafts is, I'm a completist. Like once something is on paper or digital paper, that's the truth, right? Like I will change things, but only if it truly, truly necessary. So I could see us writing a pilot and then just adapting to whatever happened in that, even if it goes off the rail, as opposed to finishing it the way we planned and going back and rewriting.
Oh, no, I absolutely think that's true. But then there's always that seeding pass, right? Because
my point is, don't listen to what we're saying, just flat.
No, I think that you have to know your audience, you have to know yourself, and you also have to be willing to do the hard work. Doing a serial is different, but it's not better. It's not harder. It's not easier. It is different. And if anything, I think doing it well probably is harder. You really have to be able to see it through. Don't start something that you can't finish. That's a really bad way to ding your reputation with readers, which is the biggest mistake that Dave and I ever made. I actually, if you look at the size of our list and how it's shrunk over the years, mine and Dave specifically, it's all because of broken promises. And that costs us a lot of money. It'll cost you money. If you start a serial, you don't finish it, your readers, a lot of them will be like, fuck this person. So you really have to finish what you start.
Oh, we finished them all, but just not in a timely fashion.
Right. And look how it atrophied our list a lot. Yeah. The time it took, and by the end, Dave's begrudging writing these because, the love is gone. And the excitement for people who are waiting for something promised to them 6 months later, and it's 4 years later, they don't have the excitement for the book, so they don't sell it. And so we're really just satisfying a few of the readers and closing our boxes, but no one really wins. So just
like marriage.
Serials are something that you really want to make it a great experience for the reader. Don't break up a book. Don't think that you can make it up as you go along and provide
No, just tell the damn story. That's what I keep thinking about when people look to dissect processes or something. I don't know if you guys will agree with this, but I feel like the era of quick tips and tricks and magic bullets and all that stuff, I think is closing. And I think that we are returning to, you just need to be good and find readers, which sounds, it's a small thing and it's a huge thing. And so listening to any specific way of telling a story as gospel and when you guys, before you started serials, listening to people who said you can't tell a story that way, I think that's a mistake.
Right, I agree. And so Marie says, is that all that much different than writing a book before publishing? Conceptually, maybe, but not logistically, right? Yeah, absolutely. It is just like writing a full book. I just think that the individual pieces are a little bit different. So I was actually going over edits this morning from something that Joel wrote that was originally written as a serial but will not be released as a serial. And it just has, it's book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4, but that was written all at once like a serial. It doesn't make sense based on the way we're starting that list. It would be too hard to get the traffic on a serial release. It doesn't make sense. So it makes sense as a full book, but he's somebody who could really nail the serial rhythm. And so once we have that audience built up, it would make sense to create something just for that. So anyway, I think that all of this is about knowing yourself. Also, if you don't like serialized stuff, because I've seen this too, authors who don't really like serials, and they're doing it because it's a way to hack the system. It's not, because it's just like, you could think of serial as a genre, right? Are you familiar with the genre? Are you familiar with what it takes to create a really great serialized experience? And if not, then I would suggest staying away. Do the things that you're good at or excited about doing.
Totally. Okay, any final words on serials before we close up?
No.
I have something great to say, but next episode.
Next episode. It's a cliffhanger.
Oh, look at Dave getting meta.
Season 2. Actually, the next episode is episode 100, which we won't probably honor in a way, which is kind of cool. Actually, that's not true. We will honor it.
Podcast.
We will honor it if Neve and Jen remember to tell us to honor it. Then we will. It'll be in the show notes. We got to honor it. I will just
play
announce
Russian roulette live on air.
The funny thing is that you've made that suggestion for every episode 100. That's not the first time we've heard that. Both of those, Naked Show and On-Air Suicide. So again,
Dave.
Thanks to Tara and Chelsea for this topic suggestion. If you guys want to suggest a topic or something for us to cover, send an email to Jen Turrell, 2 R's, 2 L's, TURRELL at sterlingandstone.net. And don't forget the BookBub promo. If you're an author with a decent sized list and who can write well, has good chops, and wants to get in on some of that promo, check out the details at sterlingandstone.net/promos. So I guess that's it.
Dear Jen, I got an idea for a show. Dave should go fuck himself.
Well, I like that. All right. Episode 100, Dave fucks himself.
Oh, can we do that, please? I don't even know what that show would be, but I'm interested in seeing it.
It would be masturbating on a skyscraper.
It would be giving... Callback. It would be giving Dave a
Would it be
prompt.
on a skyscraper, like from the top down below, or
From one of those window cleaning things?
No, it would be
on the street.
It's a figurative fucking himself. We're going to give him socially loaded topics, ask him to discuss them. He's going to trip over himself and then feel really embarrassed about it and try to get us to erase the episode.
Actually, I was going to dress as Spider-Man, climb to the top, and just shoot webs.
It's been a long time since Dave's asked us to redact an episode.
He's given up.
That hasn't happened in a while. Dave, do you know this is actually a true story? The only scene, so Amazon let the showrunner of The Boys kind of do whatever he wanted. And,
I haven't watched that yet. So
okay, well, you can tell like there's a lot of stuff on that show. The only thing that the showrunner was not allowed to do, Amazon was like, no. The Homelander character there was apparently a scene where he went up to the top of the Empire State Building and jacked off on New York City. So there you go. It's actually
King Kong did that first, though.
Yeah, I heard that.
That'd be pretty cool, actually. If I ever do a King Kong remake, he's jerking off. And he's going to throw his shit from the top of the Empire State Building.
You know, it's times like this every once in a while I think about recommending a show to like, hey, my mom, you can follow up. And then this happens. So I just never quite get there. But as Marie points out, monkeys do throw shit. So all we're doing is bringing you the facts, people.
Bonnie is hopeful that in season 2 we actually do get Homelander doing his deed.
Well, she just said maybe in season 2, but that could apply to anything. It could be Dave fucks himself. It could be the skyscraper thing. It could be the on-air suicide. It could be anything.
Ooh, on-air suicide. We haven't done that in a while.
In a while. All right. So thanks for listening, you guys. And
Soggy Biscuit, episode 100.
Soggy Biscuit.
Ooh.
And we'll see you on the next show. Bye-bye.
All right. Peace out.